Idiots, today we are going to start with another chapter. It is chapter number 5 from the book First Flight. This is the 100 Dresses part 1 written by Bsor Ester. Bsor Ester was an American. She was known for her children's story. She was awarded Newbery Award for her writings. And this story is a sensitive account, very emotional kind of story she has written. This is a sensitive account of how a poor young girl is judged by her classmates. Wanda Petronsky is a young Polish girl from Poland, Polish girl, who goes to school with other American children in an American town. In an American town, she used to go to school, and there her American classmates used to judge her, all because of her appearance, her language, etc. These other children see Wanda as different in many ways. And now we'll be discussing about the chapter, but before we go into the chapter, here an article about the Polish American community in the United States. How the people of Poland, Polish, reached to America, how they immigrated to America, and when they immigrated to America. Here it is written about. The first Polish immigrants arrived in America in the year 1608. But the largest wave of Polish immigration occurred in the early 20th century. In the early 20th century, many people from Poland shifted to or immigrated to America. When more than 1 million Poles immigrated to United States, more than 1 million people. The Polish state did not exist at that time, and the immigrants were identified according to their country of origin rather than to ethnicity. Ethnicity, human race. They were not known for the ethnicity, but they were known for their origin, from their country, from which country they belong to. In that manner, they were identified. They were identified as Russian Poles, German Poles, and Australian Poles. In that way, they were identified. One of the most notable Polish American communities is in Chicago. In Chicago, one can find many Polish people. So one of the most notable Polish American communities is in Chicago and its suburbs. Suburbs means outskirts of Chicago, outside the town. So Chicago is sometimes called the second largest Polish city in the world. Second largest Polish city in the world, Chicago. Next only to Warsaw. Warsaw, the capital of Poland. After the capital of Poland, it is Chicago, where one can see the largest population, second largest population in the world. Polish Americans were sometimes discriminated against in the United States, as were the Irish, Italians, and Jews. So they were discriminated in America. According to United States 2000 census, 6,67,414 Americans of age 5 years and older reported Polish as the language spoken at home. So in America, the people from Poland, they immigrated to America, and in that manner there were 6,67,414 Americans are from Poland, which is about 1.4% of the people who speak languages other than English. The people who speak this 1.4% or 0.25% of the US population. To the total US population, it is 0.25% population from Poland. Now let's start the chapter how the Polish girl Wenda was behaved by the other American children and how she was judged by them. Let's start. Today, Monday, Wenda Petronsky was not in her seat, but nobody, not even Peggy and Madeline, the girls who started all the fun, noticed her absence. And this was Monday, but today Wenda was not at her place in the classroom, and even Peggy and Maggie didn't notice her absence. Usually Wenda sat in the seat next to the last seat in the last row in the room 13. In room 13, it was Wenda who usually sit at the last place, at the last row, at the corner. She sat in the corner of the room where the rough boys means indisciplined boys who used to sit back. So she sat in the corner of the room where the rough boys who did not make good marks sat. The corner of the room where there were most scuffling of feet. Scuffling of feet means dragging of feet, dragging sound of feet. So from there, at the last bench, one can hear the scuffling of feet, dragging of feet sound. Most roars of laughter when anything funny was said. Anything funny was said by the teacher or someone else in the class, then the most roar laughter comes from the last row or last bench. Most roars of laughter when something funny was said, and most mud and dirt on the floor, and most mud and dirt can be found at the last bench, and there Wenda sat. Wenda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. Look, the way we are discussing, the rough boys usually sit there at the last bench, and Wenda also sits, but it is not because she was rough or noisy. The other rough boys used to sit there, but Wenda was not the girl who create indiscipline. Wenda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. On the contrary, on the opposite to the noisy nature. On the contrary, she was very quiet and rarely said anything at all. She rarely speak anything in the class. And nobody had ever heard her laugh out loud, and nobody have ever heard her noisy laughter. Never. She never laughed in that manner, and nobody had seen. Sometimes she twisted. Twisted means moved. Sometimes she twisted her mouth into a crooked sort of smile, foolish kind of smile. But that was all, and that was all she does. She doesn't laugh in louder noise. Nobody knew exactly why Wenda sat in the seat, unless it was because she came all the way from Begins Heights. Begins Heights, it's a place or the apartment where the poor Polish people stay. So nobody knew why she used to sit at the last bench, or maybe because she comes from the Bogin side where the police people live, and her feet were usually caked with dry mud. Caked with means covered with dry mud. From where she comes on the way, her feet caked with or covered with dry mud. But no one really thought much about Wenda Petronsky. In the class, nobody noticed, nobody thinks about Wenda Petronsky. Once she sat in the corner of the room. Once she came and sat in the corner of room, nobody noticed. And nobody even thinks of her. The time when they thought about Wenda was outside of school hour. Now, when they think about Wenda, is the time it is outside the school hours. At noon time, when they were coming back to school, when at the noon time after recess, when they coming back to school, that time they think about Wenda, or in the morning, early before school began, before the school start in the morning, when groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way to the schoolyard. So on the way to school, 3 or more than 3 girls or children, they used to come school, and that way they used to laugh, and that time they think about Wenda. So Wenda is a matter of laughter for them. Then sometimes they waited for Wenda to have fun with her. Sometimes they waited outside the school. They waited for Wenda to have fun, and that time they think about Wenda. And the rest time they do not. They do not care about Wenda. The next day, Tuesday, Wenda was not in school. Monday she was not in school. Now it is Tuesday, the next day, and today even Wenda was not in school either. And nobody noticed her absence again. And today also nobody noticed. But on Wednesday and the next day, Wednesday, Peggy and Madeline, who sat down front with other children who got good marks and who didn't trek means walk, who didn't walk in the whole lot of mud, did notice that Wenda was not there. So this time it was Wednesday. It was Peggy and Mary who used to sit at the first line or first bench of the class. There usually the good marks holders or scorer usually sit there. And today it was Peggy and Mary noticed that Wenda is absent. Mary, who sat down from other children who got good marks and who didn't trek in a whole lot of mud, did notice that Wenda wasn't there. Peggy was the most popular girl in the school. Peggy is the topper also and most popular girl in the school. She was pretty. She had many pretty clothes and her hair was curly. So for many reasons, she is famous in the class. Who? Peggy. She was pretty. She had many pretty clothes and her hair was curly. And her friend Maddie was her closest friend of Peggy. Maddie was her closest friend. The reason Peggy and Maddie noticed Wenda's absence was because Wenda had met them late to school. But why they noticed that today Wenda is absent? Because of Wenda, today they are late to school. Why they are late to school? All because they were waiting outside for Wenda to come. and when Wenda would come, they would have fun at her. So that is the reason they were waiting for Wenda. But today she didn't come, and in that manner these students got late. So the reason Peggy and Maddie noticed Wenda's absence was because Wenda had made them late to school. They had waited for Wenda to have some fun with her, and she just hadn't come. So that is the reason Peggy and Maddie became late to school. They often waited for Wenda Petronsky to have fun with her, and this is their regular way of behaving towards Wenda. They used to wait for Wenda, and when Wenda arrives, they make fun of her. So in that manner, they wait outside the school. And that day, Wednesday also, they waited for that reason, and Wenda didn't arrive, and in that way Peggy and Maddie became late to school. Wenda Petronsky. Most of the children in room 13 didn't have names like that. So Wenda Petronsky is a Polish name, and in America it is not common. So most of the children in room 13 didn't have names like that. They had names easy to say, like Thomas, Smith or Allen. These are American names and are very common in America. But Wenda Petronsky is not common. There was one boy named Bounce, Willie Bounce, American boy, and whose name was Bounce, Willie Bounce. And people thought that was funny. At the beginning, they thought it is funny, and they used to make fun of him, but not funny in the same way that Petronsky was. The name Petronsky was funnier than Bounce, Willie Bounce. So they started making fun of Wenda Petronsky's name. Wenda didn't have any friends in school. She came to school alone and went home alone. Every day she used to come alone and go back to home alone. She had no friend in class. She always wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right. So she used to wear blue dress that is faded one, and that didn't hang right, and that didn't suit her. It was clean, but it looked as though it had never been ironed properly. The blue faded dress she used to wear was cleaned, but it seemed like never been ironed properly. She didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. She didn't have a single friend in school, but there were many students who used to talk to her. Why they used to talk to her? They used to talk to her to make fun of her. Sometimes she didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the hard ground. On the hard ground, the other girls used to play, and it was Wenda who used to come to the ground to see them, and in that manner she used to spend her time in school. Wenda, Peggy would say in the most cautious manner, as though she were talking to Miss Mason. So the way she used to talk with the teacher Miss Mason, in same manner Peggy would speak to Wenda, showing kind of respect. Wenda she would say, giving one of her friends nose, and tell us, how many dresses do you say you had hanging up in your closet? So Peggy comes to Wenda and she used to ask her, Wenda, tell, how many dresses do you have in your closet, in your wardrobe? How many dresses you have? In that manner, she asked Wenda. Now Wenda replied, 100. Wenda would reply, what? 100 dresses. 100? Exclaimed all the little girls incredulously, and the little one would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Incredulously means showing unwillingness to believe. They couldn't believe when they heard that Wenda had 100 dresses and she used to only one, blue, faded, that is even not ironed properly. So they couldn't believe that Wenda has 100 dresses. Yeah, 100, all lined up, said Wenda. She replied, yes, I have 100 dresses and all lined up one after another in my closet, in my wardrobe. Then her thin lips drew together in silence. After telling that, her mouth would be sealed. She would not be speaking anything. Her thin lips drew together in silence. What are they like? All silk, I bet, said Peggy. So Peggy, once again, making fun of Wenda, she would speak. What are they like? What do they look like? I think they are silk, quite costly. All silk, I bet, said Peggy. And Wenda would reply, yeah, all silk and all colors. I have all the dresses of silk material and different colors. So Peggy would ask again, velvet too? Silk and even velvet too? Wenda would reply, yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses. Wenda would repeat stolidly. Stolidly means not showing any feeling, without showing any feeling. She would reply in same manner that, yeah, I have velvet too. So yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses. Wenda would repeat stolidly. All lined up in my closet, and all lined up, all the dresses lined up in my closet. So I have all kind of dress, silk material and even velvet, and of different colors, and they are lined up in my closet or wardrobe. That is what Wenda would reply.